I'm gonna go first, and I had the Detroit Lions. Listen, Detroit is kind of where the Eagles were at a couple years before we won the Super Bowl, where we had figured out how to be consistently good. Now, how do we become champions? And so when I went into this offseason with the Detroit Lions, I thought big swings. We need to take big swings. We need to find our Saquon Barkley. We need to find our impact player on defense. And so here I am. I'm going to start with number one. Let's re-sign Carlton Davis on a team that plays so much man defense, and we'll see if that changes with Aaron Glenn moving on. Having Carlton Davis, who excels in man coverage, I think bringing him back, especially with the cap space to do so, is number one. Bring him back as CB1, CB2. I don't care what you label him as. Bring him back. You need him in the room. I don't want to completely turn this thing over to the young Bucks just yet. Number two, you're losing Zeitler. Zeitler is an older guard, or what, Angel, 35?
35.
Yeah. Out with the old, in with the new. I love James Daniels out of Pittsburgh, and I love him on the Detroit Lions. James Daniels, one of the very best run-blocking guards in the game. Is a little bit hit or miss on pass blocking, but I think he'll get better with the guys around him here in Detroit. But run blocking guard on a Detroit Lions, yeah, I think that's going to work. I think that's meant to be. So James Daniels, I have him first. We'll stop there. Boys, what do you think about Carlton Davis and James Daniels so far?
Carlton Davis is a phenomenal fit there. He should stay there. Obviously, he probably wants to get a little bit of a higher pay raise, but he deserves it. This is probably the best season he's had since that Carlton Davis season that he had with Tampa Bay when they won the whole thing. So yeah, and then obviously James Daniels has always been talented. He's just been with the Steelers, and that's a battle line. I think he's much like Mekhi Becton, where you put him around better linemen and he becomes better. So yeah, that's it. It's a good fit.
I like the pick. I like your pick so far. Carlton Davis, definitely a guy you got to pick up again. Look, with Aaron Glenn going out, I think the defense is something that the Lions have to address, and they gave up a lot of points too as well. So especially against the Commanders in the playoffs. So that's something that they gotta address, that secondary, because they got torched. They got torched really, in a lot of games this year. So I think that's definitely the move is to re-sign Davis. That'll be a huge move for them.
Something to pay attention to with the Lions too this offseason is you got to also make a whole other category of all the players they're going to get back from injury. They finished the season with damn near 1/3 of their defense last year. Like they lost so many guys, and not like obviously Aiden Hutchinson's the biggest among those, but like their entire linebacking core, some very key interior defensive linemen. They lost some huge names. They're going to get those guys back, but these next two guys are my big swings. These next two guys, I think, I think they've always been Super Bowl contenders, but like a team that could actually win it. Number one, I'm going Josh Sweat. I think he's going to leave the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles can afford to bring him back. I think they have youth at defensive end, at pass rusher. And so I think Josh Sweat does actually hit the market. And I don't think realistically, I don't think the Browns are trading Myles Garrett. I just don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to hold him. They're going to make it work, whatever. They're going to appease him. I don't think Myles Garrett is actually going anywhere. I think Max Crosby could, but I just don't know if Tom Brady wants to come in. The first thing is trade the best player they've had there for the last 5 years or whatever. So I'm skeptical about these big name defensive ends actually being moved. We hear it every year. They get paid, they get more money, they get appeased in some way. I think signing someone like Josh Sweat is a little more realistic to be a little more of a long-term Robin to Aiden Hutchinson's Batman. I think Josh Sweat is exactly what you need. The other side there can win on one-on-one coverage. Obviously has done it in the biggest, brightest games against the Chiefs. We don't have to go over all that again. But Josh Sweat, I think, is the type of warrior that Dan Campbell would like. And I think the perfect fit next to Aiden Hutchinson and give them a real Super Bowl winning pass rush. I like this for Josh Sweat. Do you guys think I should take a bigger swing, or what do you think?
No, I think we brought up Max Crosby. I think that's the big swing. I think it's tough though with bringing in Pete Carroll, who's all defense and run the ball. I agree with you. I don't see them just blowing that defense up with really the only big piece they have. The interesting one though is Myles Garrett. I think definitely Detroit has to look at a guy like that if they're going to take a big swing in a trade. Is to go after him. That's the guy I really want them to get. But Josh Sweat's a solid pickup in signing. If I were to go another route, I think a guy he needs a prove it year and a prove it team. I think it's Hassan Reddick. I think that's the guy who he came from Philly. He was real annoyed with their whole contract situation. Went to the Jets, held out. Jets didn't give him any money, and he didn't play. He wasn't a real game changer with the Jets. So I think he's a guy that needs a prove it season, either a 1-year deal with Detroit or a shorter deal and prove it to where he can earn his money. But I think he might come in and make some noise with Detroit. I think Hassan Reddick is the sleeper guy that Detroit should target.
Man, I don't mind Hassan Reddick here. That would be pretty sick. But yeah, he has a lot of trust to build around the NFL before I think anyone hands him a big deal. But yeah, I don't think he gets that big deal. I think he would be available. But yeah, I think Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, that type of edge rusher is more realistic than some of these bigger names we've been hearing. My last one though is the biggest swing they take. Right now, it looks like the way this is going to go down in the next couple of weeks is that T. Higgins is going to get tagged. I don't think they're going to let him hit free agency right away. I think they're also playing this game of, see, Joe Burrow, we're trying to sign him. We're trying to, keep your guy. And so I think they tag him because they can't just let him walk. Joe Burrow would kill him. And I think they try to work out a deal still. But T. Higgins wants to get paid. That's the number one thing. It's not Super Bowls. It's not playing with Joe Burrow. It's not playing with Jamar Chase. It's not any of those window dressing, fluffy, nice guy stuff. He wants to get paid. That's the end of it. And I don't think at the end of the day, the Bengals are going to back up the Brinks truck and pay him, knowing full well they're about to make Jamar Chase the highest paid receiver of all time. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think eventually they tag and trade him, and that's when I think the Lions absolutely need to pounce. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love more than I did, so much more, my boy Jameson Williams. But T. Higgins would right away be the number one on this team. He would be the number one receiver. He would command the double teams, and I think he would unlock a new level of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think it would subside the numbers and the impact of Jameson Williams, but Jameson Williams is the type of player that doesn't need the ball 10 times in the game to impact the game. He needs 4 or 5 targets, and he could blow something wide open. So I think he becomes that kind of player, and you have a big three here that is the best in the NFL by far, which leads me to my next question, though. And I was trying to figure out a way to get a quarterback on this team, because are we sure that Jared Goff is the guy to handle these 3 Ferraris on this team?
I mean, who are you gonna? Unless you're in the Stafford business, who are you gonna go get? Who can? I think he's. I like Jared Goff here. I'm not in love with T. Higgins there. Because it's a more a cherry on top, but this is cherry on top. So I guess cherry on top guys are never needed, but this would put him over the top, obviously. So yeah, Jared Goff, I have faith in him. He had a bad year last year. It wasn't great. And without Ben Johnson, you worry a little bit if that will continue to go downhill. But yeah, it's just, what are the other options? It's hard. Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. There's not a lot of options out there.
Yeah, there's not much. There's no one that's exciting like right now. Oh, I trust this person over Jared Goff outside of the quarterbacks who are better than them. So I think he's the best guy to go with. There's no one out there that right now that you would say, hey, let's go get this guy over Jared Goff. He's going to take us over the top.
Yeah, that's where I ended up too. I try to get a quarterback on this team, and there's just no options for an upgrade in Jared Goff because he is a good player. And so if you're going to move on from him, you need to get one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and that guy's just not available. I thought maybe if Kyler Murray becomes available, maybe obviously Stafford's not going back to Detroit. And so I think Goff probably is what they do from here on out. But I think next year maybe they get a quarterback on the roster at least. There's also no young quarterbacks here to tack onto the roster at the end of the first round with the 28th pick. So it's kind of like you're really stuck with Jared Goff here. Lastly here I have Jahad Campbell, linebacker of Alabama. Jahad Campbell, you got to think Brian Branch in the linebacker version. He's just a missile. He's a great athlete. He has real upside rushing the quarterback. I think you kind of stick him in many different positions and he would excel. I think that's a nice compliment to Jack Campbell, who's a really more traditional linebacker. Kind of, he does what he does. He is what he is. I think to have a more versatile guy next to that would be nice. That's, I think, mirroring what they had in San Francisco for a little bit, with Fred Warner being a very traditional go see the ball, go get the ball type linebacker, and Dre Greenlaw, who could fly around a little bit more. I like Jahad Campbell here, and to add to that linebacker core. And I think listen, I think if these guys hit Detroit, I mean, I'd have a hard time not picking them to at least the NFC Championship game, and you would have to expect a Super Bowl from that roster.
So T. Higgins would be the biggest ad. Yeah, I mean, this team was close. It just fell disappointingly to the upstart Jane Daniels Commanders. But yeah, I mean, T. Higgins and Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's an incredible duo. And they complement each other very well, obviously.
Yeah, and to stress again, like, the team that lost to the Commanders is like they were hurt across the board. Like, they're getting these 5 guys and all those guys back, and hopefully staying healthy. And so I think they're a lot closer than they were, obviously, even this year. I think they probably should have played the Eagles in the championship game. It obviously wasn't the Commanders that was supposed to be that team. They got blown out. It was supposed to be the Lions all year. All year long, we were on this collision course of Eagles-Lions. It's just when that moment came, the Lions got beat up and it didn't work out. But we'll see what happens this year. That's football.